I'd like to introduce you to Kirsty Eberl, who'll be running your training today. So Kirsty is a fellow consultant with Total Calibration, and there is a rough agenda added to this, but Kirsty can always add on top of that. So our plan was to just take you through XYZ. In fact, I'll let Kirsty intro it, but what is different between me and her is I've met a lot of you before, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and your roles, and then we'll talk a little bit about, maybe I'll put a couple of caveats on because I always do before we start after that, but maybe could you, I'll just go with who's on my screen, top right. So Tony, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I've been working for this company for about 12 years, primarily in payroll implementations and support and training. And I bumped into Lanteria a few times along the way, but I've never actually spent time learning how to use it. And so that's why I'm here.
Great.
Nice. What about you, Stuart?
Me. We'll start with, just worked out that Verity's about 12 minutes away from me.
Very strange.
Penguin, and she didn't recognise the Leven River. I've come from, I was with Central Coast Council here for 28 years. Left a couple of years ago, and then Philip got me to come on board earlier this year to do stuff with the HR package, so the Lanteria stuff.
So this is your focus.
Exactly what I'll be doing. I'll be supporting councils and whatever is required.
Cool.
Great.
So your main focus will be Lanteria.
Main focus Lanteria, yep, and sort of council support for the general legacy stuff because they needed a dinosaur.
Sure. Thank you. Darren, what about you?
Yep, so I'm an implementation consultant, I guess, and also a developer for the finance and payroll product.
Yeah, so Darren and I have worked we've spent many hours together trying to get integration working, Kirsty.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a lot of like bonding experience going, oh my God, it's still not working. Oh, and then just the joy of getting everything up and running. That's our time together.
Yep.
What about you, Vijay?
Good morning, all. I'm Vijay Pendiganti. I closely work with the finance team. So I manage the finance and payroll teams at Open Office. Sorry, not Open Office anymore, ReadyTech. So and I also do a bit of pre-sales. So that's about me.
Okay, great.
And we do have Swasti still, yeah? You disappeared off camera, but
sorry, I have a little bit of cold, so
right,
yeah. So I'm also, like Tony, a payroll consultant at ReadyTech, hired by Open Office about coming up to 2 years now. And my focus will be also payroll, HR, coming into learning from Stuart and you guys. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I should say actually, although I said Jinx didn't have to put her camera on because she's brand spanking new and a little bit intimidated by all of us. I should say Jinx is hovering in the background as a shadow learner, a bit of a bonus. I'll hand it over to Kirsty. Kirsty, you can do any further intro that you want to, and I'll add a caveat at the end.
Okay, great. So I'm Kirsty. I'm based in Auckland. So if I say something that doesn't make sense, it's probably because I'm more used to dealing with New Zealand-based clients. So if I refer to things such as TFN and KiwiSaver instead of superannuation, that's where it's coming from.
That's right. We brought our own translator.
Oh, great. Well, mine's a bit of a combination. I can never remember what comes from South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand. I'm like flip-flops, jandals, thongs.
Swasti used to work in New Zealand before joining us. So she lived and worked there for, I'm not sure, 4 or 5 years maybe. Yeah.
13 years.
Sorry?
14.
13 years.
13
yeah.
years.
So I've been here for 3 years now. So yeah.
Oh,
took a
great.
while.
Basically a Kiwi. You're a Kiwi.
You know, PAYE to PAYG.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Now, have you got some? That's probably the only caveat. The real caveat I've put on this one is I haven't worked on the integration payroll nav integration piece with Kirsty at all. So if you wanted to dive into any of those details, let's do it at the end. I will jump off and jump back on at the end. But do make sure you have a little break in the middle, Kirsty, so you don't lose your voice entirely.
Yep.
Also, like Kirsty's got that agenda to follow through. I figured anything that didn't get covered today can flow into the next session. And if you were interested in kind of more technical, any of the technical deployment stuff, can you flag it with me at the end today as well? Because I'll add a different consultant onto the end of the second session, so you can have a think about it. It wasn't what you asked about, VJ. And as you know, it's a huge software package, so 6 hours doesn't cover everything anyway without technical deployment. But have a think about it.
It's at
yeah.
8, so maybe we got a couple of hours extra somewhere. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, we
into
can
the
pop
session,
in
yeah.
a dedicated session potentially on just that
Yeah.
with spoke people. Who's this extra person? Christina snuck in right at the critical moment, Kirsty.
Okay. Well, today I'm going to cover with you front end, core HR, recruitment, and a bit of back end maintenance. And hopefully we can fit that all in. If we don't get to all of it, as Verity said, we can roll over to next week. Please feel free to jump in and ask any questions. If I don't have the answer, we can flag it with Verity when she comes back in, but hopefully I'll be able to answer all of your questions. And if you want me to deep delve any further into any areas, just shout out.
Cool.
You mean that, right,
Okay.
Kirsty? Like you want them to interactively
Yep,
ask questions?
absolutely.
She means it, guys, so just jump in. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So there may be pieces of what I'm going through that you're very familiar with, or some of you are very familiar with. But for the purpose of this training, we are going beginning to end. Sorry, just give me a sec. I seem to have lost you all. So there we go. Teams, I had a nice update this morning, and you never know what tricks it's going to play. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to start off with the front end dashboard, and I'm going to give you a quick overview. So starting from right to left, our first icon over here is our user profile. From your user profile, you'll be able to see all your settings. You can access your details. Which will open my digital employee card. And here we can see all of my information. I am going to dive into the digital employee card in more detail at a later stage. We then have a Lanteria chatbot. This chatbot allows you to ask questions on the system. Here we have our help guide. So this will give you any support you have on the page. It can also link you to the online help center. Next is your user notifications. So this will advise users of any notifications, any HR tasks that they have pending. And this is our quick actions button. Now, quick actions are completely customizable. Here you can see our most commonly used as an HR user are create employee, post announcement, start a process, upload documents, upload certificates, change manager, request to recruit, or create a vacancy. These will differ depending on what role you are in. So as you can see here, I am an HR user, so I have the HR role. I also have a manager. I'm also a manager, which means I have people reporting to me. and I'm an employee. Most users will only have the employee role. Once they have a Office 365 account designated to them, they will instantaneously gain employee access, and the same as a manager. So once a manager or an individual has any employees reporting to them, they will gain manager access. So this doesn't need to be set up or configured by HR in any way. And then we have this HR portal, HR role. Next, we have find employee. So there's various ways to search for employees in the system. I generally find this the easiest. So if I wanted to look for someone specific, I would view here under Lisa, and that would give me the leases, and I can open up her digital employee file from here. But there are alternative ways to do that. Now, as you can see, I'll go into each of these roles. So this is the HR role. And as you can see, I have a dashboard here. So this dashboard gives me an overview of the organization. So it shows me the numbers of employees. So I can choose to filter that by rolling year or individually. I also have an overview of my org units. And I can divvy this up into countries, companies, or locations, the different employee types, and how many people, what percentage we have in each role, and our general company figures. So that's a nice user dashboard. From here, we can go into our documents dashboard. And this is one of the key features of Lanteria. So this, as you know, especially working with the councils, is really imperative to make sure that you are compliant. So here we've got a view of documents expiring in 3 months. We don't need to include terminated employees, but we can also search or filter by document type, for example, and expiration dates, and it's a great way to keep track. And once again, we have the missing documents. So these are any documents that are mandatory for an employee. So if they are missing, they will be registered here, and you can go through. We have the HR help desk. So much like a ICT help desk, this allows staff members to communicate with the HR team and sending requests. Really great way to keep on top of everything. Here we have our goals dashboard. And once again, we can view employees' goals by status, org units goals by status, employee goals, and org unit goals. Verity will go into this in more detail, along with performance and learning in the next session. So just to view, so here are our performance goals and our learning statistics. So this is just a really nice way to view the information. And then once again, we've got our system usage over here. And this is where you can view who are your top users of the system, what modules are they utilizing the most, etc. Okay. Now I'm just going to show you the different roles. So here, for example, if we go into the employee role, you can see that the landing page is quite different. So this is what your general employee will see. As you can see, the menu items at the top here are also different to what we had in the HR role. Once again, also very configurable. So the main things here are tasks requiring my actions. Once again, you can get to it through user notifications. So this will advise employees of any tasks that require their action, and they are filtered by due date or sorted by due date. So you can see here, 360 feedback is required, and they have some objectives to perform. Now, announcements is pretty self-explanatory. HR can add announcements, whether it's company updates, if there's a, what's the word? So if there's, you can advertise any new roles, if you've got one you're desperately looking for, announcements about new employees or any surveys that are taking place. And down here we have important dates. So this is birthdays and anniversaries. And finally, recognition. So this is where employees can provide each other with positive recognition and reinforcement. They can request feedback, and they can also choose whether it is private or public. So this is just a nice tool to boost employee engagement. So I'm going to pop back here into the HR role, and we can head on to core HR. So I'm going to start off by going through the menu items and explaining what they are. We will then go into the digital employee file, and then back-end settings and configuration. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions?
No.
Just around the
They're pretty-
documents that you showed before that had expiry dates on them, do they push to
Yep.
any sort of records management or document management system?
There are reports that you can pull.
Okay, but like you can't. So these don't push to like a trim or a.
No, directly.
No.
I think they
Okay.
only go to
No,
the
that's-
local SharePoint.
They're still, yeah, they're still in SharePoint.
Yeah,
There
okay,
was
cool.
an integration piece we did for Moreland about that. It's
Mhm.
viable, but it's not default. And I will jump off, Kirsty. They are starting to ask questions though. You've got them, and it's going really well. The internet's really stable. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Just question on documents versus certificates. The
Yes.
definition there.
So documents can be anything relating to the employee. So they can fall under the category of anything from driver's licenses to confidentiality agreements. We've also got the job contract library, which will hold all employment information, whereas certifications that are either acquired through learning, or alternatively certifications that are required to perform a job. So if you've got anyone in the medical practice, they'll need their annual practicing certificate, for example, and that can track that effectively.
Yep. So that, like a first aid certificate, that doesn't sit in the document library, does it? It goes.
That would go into the certificates library.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I'm now going to run through the core HR module. So we're going to start off with employees. So firstly, we can do an employee search from here, and this will bring you through all employees within the organization as soon as it loads. Now, if you do have, you can see this is auto-loaded. However, if you do have larger organizations, I think it's capped at about 750 employees, they will need to click on view to load this. You can also filter by area. So there, if you wanted to look and we had to search by our finance and accounting, and I want to see everyone, I would include the sub-org units and click view. And that will show me everyone in the accounting and finance department. And from here, you can click on them and view their employee card. So every employee has the option of they have got their HR employee card. They have fields that are visible only to them, only to HR, only to their managers, and only to them. And they also have a public view, which may just give a list of contact details, etc., depending on the requirements of your client. From here, we're going to have a look at the employee chart. Okay, so this gives us a list of all employees in the organization and where they belong. Once again, we can click on a employee and pull up their digital employee card from here. And it gives you a nice overview of who's sitting where in the business. But now, once again, you can also filter. So you can add additional filters, as I showed you, once again, by department. We'll look at finance and accounting. I'm not going to put or include sub-org units at this point. And you can see here, we've got this level up and level down. So I want to see 2 levels down from them. And unfortunately, there's no one here. I'll re-demonstrate this back in the organizational chart.
Hey, Christy, sorry. Can we ask you questions in between, or do you want us to ask?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. My question would be is, let's say if I have this Anton Bayuk, so we wanted to change him into something else. So is there an option to drag and drop or set up a new position?
That would need to be done within the employee card. So what you would need to do is click into their name and change job, and you can assign from there. But if you wanted to see if it was actually correct, and they have moved to the correct place, reporting into the correct team with the correct managers, this is where you would look.
Can I also have, like, say, one which is an actual org chart, but can I also create a how it would be next year if I'm planning for next year? Can I create multiple org charts?
That is a very good question. You can have active and inactive org charts. So you could develop a organizational structure in the back end and have it sitting as inactive.
Okay.
And I'll show you that now. So let's go back and let's finish with employees, and we'll go through to the org charts next. Okay. Now this takes us, as you know, Lanteria works off the back end of SharePoint and is based on lists. So all of these links that you're seeing now are customizable. We add them because we know they're the most popular ones that our clients use. So that with the employees, it's always easiest for them to go into the employee lists to view the data. So we've got this A to Z here. And this will take you directly into the employee list. And I will go into this in more details here, but you can see we can view by various different criteria depending on what we're looking for. But I will be giving you a full tutorial on creating lists and working with employee data from the back end. Okay. The next thing I want to show you, so as we said, I said this was the bulk, but we also have common lists that we're always looking for. So, for example, in this situation, they wanted to know who all of their volunteers in the company were. And this gives us a list of all the volunteers. And as you saw there, I won't go into it because it's quite self-explanatory. But here we can view all terminated staff as well. I'm going to move over into...
Kirsty, just before we get off that, just the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to have a SharePoint account?
No, they don't have to have a SharePoint account unless you want them to have access to Lanteria.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of managing contractors.
Now you can get a SharePoint account without a license.
Yep.
So they will need, if they are wanting to get access to Lanteria, they will need that. However, if it's just a numbers game, then you don't
Yes.
necessarily need. Yep.
So I've got contractors and they have to have certain documents in order to work on the site, but I just want to keep track of that, not actually, they don't need access to Lanteria. I just need to know who the contractors are and that they have the appropriate documents.
Yep. Okay, I am going to flag that one back again when Verity, because I don't want to advise you that anything that is incorrect, but from my knowledge, I think that is true, but we'll just verify that with Verity when she's back online.
Thank you.
Okay. Just hold on. Sorry, I lost my page. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay, so back to org structure. So once again, so now just to explain the list. So we have various different charts that we're looking at, as you'll see. So the employee chart, which we've just shown you, the organizational chart, and then the jobs and positions chart. So this is the organizational chart, and I really like this. So back to your question, VJ. Once again, we can show it with employees or without. So if you just wanted to look at the organizational chart on its own, you'll also find that if anything's not assigned, you'll have orphaned org units, orphaned employees, or orphaned job roles that will be sitting up at the top here. So it's always great to come in here and view if there's anything missing. It's a great way to see if anything's not right. We can look, so once again, I'm just going to utilize my filters here. And I'm going to go, let's see, region, I'll go have a look at Asia. So I can show you, do we have any levels down? And then if we put levels up, levels down, it will give us more information. Just going to clear that filter. Okay, and we can also choose to hide employees. Sorry, that filter didn't clear. Okay, now, yes, so back to VJ's question. If you were wanting to build an org structure, this would be a great place to do it. You would need a base and you can build from here. So I really like this functionality, which is you can come in here and edit directly from here. Alternatively, you can edit from the list and make changes from the list. It's depending what you're wanting to do, but everyone finds their way that they prefer to work. So here you can see all of the criteria or data that make up the organizational unit. So it obviously needs a name, description, parent organizational unit, company, country, location, cost centers, legal entity, code, if there's a manager existing, local HR is inactive. So this is what I was saying to you earlier. So I really like this is inactive. So for example, if you wanted to grandparent an org unit, you could mark that as inactive now. And once there were no longer any incumbents, that would be marked as inactive, and it would disappear. To help you not employ anyone to that org unit going forward, and that's the same with job roles and job positions. It's also organizational unit type. And if you wanted to set up an organizational unit as an umbrella, so as an umbrella having no employees, you could deny direct employee access. You can also add new here. So if I wanted a new org unit underneath my executive management, or let's do something a little bit. So under ICT, I wanted to add a new organizational unit called Systems and Development, for example. This is also a great place to add it from. So you've got that live view of the chart here and control over it. Okay, are there any questions, further questions in regards to this? Oh, and also, once again, you can export all of these areas to PDF, but they can be rather big depending on your organization. No questions? Okay.
Thanks, Christy. Yeah, all good.
Okay, now once again, you have a list view, as I explained, and I am going to go into this in further details with as I have more information. So this is where you would go into update any information. Also, if you were doing a bulk upload, it would be easiest to utilize it through here. And finally, you also have a tree view. Which in my come in here, but it's there if you need it. Next, we're going to look at jobs and positions. So is everyone aware that they require job role and a job position?
Can you define nicely the job roles and positions? I've been playing around with this, and I've got really confused with that.
So a job role would be your overarching, job role is your overarching category of what that job is. So for example, you could have, and I'll say this depending on the size of your organization. So you could have a job role as just nurse, for example, but the job positions underneath those job roles would be registered nurse, enrolled nurse, etc. And that would define. However, you might have your job role as registered nurse, and they may have a different line of criteria based on their location, etc. So I might have a registered nurse Auckland who has different duties and competencies to my registered nurse in New South Wales, for example. And that defines it. So I think the best way is by looking at some of the fields that we capture when we capture these. So if we look on your job role, everyone who is a registered nurse is going to need a nursing degree or a certain certificate. So that certification is going to fall under everyone. They'll have a certain promotion path, rotation path, or job grade, depending on that job role and that job category. However, if we go and look at our job positions, we then pull up a lot of other criteria, and these will all go into making or creating the position description of the job. So if we have a look at our job positions, we can see that under job positions, we are capturing a lot of other information. So your job role is your base, and then your job positions are the variances of that underneath. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me open this in another tab so we can have them close together, and I'll re-explain. Okay, so let's look at our details for an accounts payable officer. Going to edit that item. And what criteria are we collecting for our accounts payable officer? So we need a description. So this is where the base description will come from. They'll be in a category. We can assign a promotion path, a rotation path, and succession. We can apply a job grade. And and we can add other information to that, such as financial delegations or legal delegations. However, our job positions, if we look at our accounts payable officer, so all of the accounts payable officers will have that base core of data, but it may vary from their location or other criteria. So for example, if we look at the information that we're capturing on our accounts payable officer in Beijing, this is where we get our FTE data, etc. So they'll be linked to an organizational unit, they'll be linked to a job role. Our FTE headcount will be based on positions and not job roles. We can stipulate salaries for that area, and any budgeted information, etc. And we can also assign learning based through job roles. I feel like I've confused you a little bit more. Okay. And certain competencies are also assigned via job roles. So let's have a look at the job profiles and then the position charts. So once again, here I'm going to open my accounts payable officer. And we can see that the job requirements for all accounts payable officer, no matter where they're located, is minimum of 4 years experience. They need an accounting qualification. They need 0 expertise. They need to be competent in the following responsibilities, and they will have relationships to a specific job role, which is the finance manager. Verity is going to go into competencies in more detail with you, and that may explain some of this a little more clearly. We can also make sure, so this is also where your mandatory documents and certifications come in. So for example, as I said, any medical doctors, etc., would require would have to have an annual practicing certificate. Yeah, we've got all of our mandatory training and certifications that will be automatically assigned to every single person who is linked to that job role. So that is so you are not individually assigning different information to different people that is not necessarily relevant. Okay, and now finally, we're going to look at our jobs and positions chart. Now, you know, in Lanteria, people can have more than one assignment. So I could be a 0.5 FTE to accounts payable and a 0.5 FTE to accounts receivable. They could have different criteria, for example, different cost centers, etc. But right now we are looking at main assignments only. So if I wanted to come in here, once again, I could view all of the job roles, who the managers of them, what the parent job roles are, what the FTE is, and who is placed in those roles. And once again, we can go in and we can edit. And we can also add from here. So if I had a new position in my role, I could come in and add it from here. Okay.
Are you restricted to being 1 FTE?
You are not restricted to being 1 FTE.
So,
not at all.
So I could be 1.5.
You could be 1.5. Would you be 1.5? Would you be doing
Shouldn't well, it shouldn't be.
But you could be a 0.8 and a 0.2, or
Yes,
a point,
yeah.
or a
Oh, sorry.
0.5 and a 0.3 and a 0.2.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so the system won't let you go over 1, just because that would be an error that you've. Well, I would have thought that was an error. Go more than 0.5.
I don't actually know the answer for that. However, what do you categorize a 0.8 FTE being? A full-time worker who works 40 hours. Oh, sorry, once again, I'm in New Zealand, so better better legislation in Australia. So 38 hours in Australia would be a 0.1 FTE. However, they may be working, and I am going back to medical jargon here. So we could have had a full-time nurse during COVID who was then working 4 hours or 5 hours on a weekend at a vaccination clinic. That could possibly take her over to a 1.4 FTE or a 1.1 FTE.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. But once again, I haven't had that question asked to me. I was just working it out in my head myself. I will get that verified for you. Okay. So next we are going into documents, and we have had this conversation a little bit earlier on, and here you can see the different document types. So we have company documents, employee documents, expiring documents, missing documents, vaccination documents, job contracts, and position descriptions. Now, all of these are made, are assigned through document libraries that we set up in the back end of the system. Now I'll go through each of these. So I really like this company documents. Here you can make this visible to your organization. And it's usually under employees where they have access to all company documents, whether it is forms, manuals, policies, etc. And it's a really nice little library where people can easily access the information that they need. We will be looking, as I said, and we are looking high level now. I will be going into these more in each of the roles, and when we go into the digital employee card. Now, our next is employee documents. So here you can see, just looking, let's look at Eileen Davidson over here and see what she's got. So she has a job contract in here, which I don't like because that shouldn't be in there. And she has first aid, also shouldn't be in there. She has a grievance. Hold on, let me see if I can find someone. There we go. So these are the type of documents you want to see in your employee documents. You want to see a resume, you want to see a job description, police check, driver's licenses, all of that base information that's involved with your employees. We do need to set up content types, and we will set up expiry dates for any information that needs to be tracked more effectively. So, for example, any fixed term contracts, etc., would have an expiry date. As you can see, the national police checks here have an expiry date, etc., and any licenses. Now, if we go in and I'm going to go into job contracts next. Now, job contracts is where we should see any of our employment documentation. So any employment agreements, any bond agreements, if they're bonded to a role, etc. What I like to do with my clients is I like to use this job contracts folder because we can restrict access. So what I like to do is use anything related to payroll. So I would do job contracts, IRD forms, bank information, all in this secure folder. Therefore, I don't need to give payroll access to any other information, only to if they require it. They can only come in and view this job contracts folder, for example. And also going back to employment documents and all documents, you can also assign whether you want to give the employee access to it. So for example, if it's a grievance, you may not want the employee to have access, but you may want the manager to, or vice versa. There are documentations and you can restrict the access on who sees it. Okay, just by signing through this, but we will go through and upload documents and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, vaccination documents are pretty standard. So I'm going to click into expiring documents. So what we have done here is we have linked the expiring documents report for easy access. Yeah. And here we can view all of our employees. Say you wanted to look for a specific business unit. I want to see everyone in sales who has expiring documents. You may want to send this off to a manager. And let's see, anyone from 1st of June. And we can view this. And all I've got is a cocktail menu. Okay, let's maybe use another. Okay, and here we can see all of our documents. You can go in and view the document from here as well. You will be able to edit any of the criteria if you need to, and you can open it by clicking here. Okay, from documents, we can view position descriptions. Now, this is a position description library. I will go into this quickly. Now, it takes a while to build up all of the core information that you need to build up the job description library. So it's usually not a straight phase one implementation task. So you might still need to keep your copies of your paper-based position descriptions on file for people to access. But once we have all of that information, so once they've got all of their competencies, performance, everything's filled nicely, you will no longer be using the position descriptions, and it will be made up of all of the information and the data that we collect in Lanteria. And I'll show you what this looks like shortly. Okay, the next bit, and
just on that, Christy, before we go, yeah, that's one of the things, like at councils managing licenses, and like you have a rigid license, you're working at heights, your chainsaw licenses, because unless they're valid, theoretically
you can't work.
You can't work, and have the managers being able to know which of their staff licenses are coming up for renewal and that sort of thing.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let me move on. So I wasn't really going to touch on training today, but as you can see here, so that's not sitting in employee documents, that is sitting in learning, where you can, because what would usually happen is you would have training courses. So for example, your employees would need to have a working at heights that they can register with through the system, etc. And once those certifications are received, they can be uploaded in here. So for example, so if no one saw where I went, I'm in learning certificates. And here we can see all of my employees that have a CPR certificate. And we can see when it was issued, when it expires, what it was, and then we can follow up from there. And there is reporting capable from that, which I will take you into when we do the learning module. But once again, you will get anything that is missing will because they're all part of a document library, they will come up on the missing documents report.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And when I go into reports, we can also have a look at some reports that you can give to your individual managers so they can track it themselves, as well as HR being on top of it, depending on the company's needs. Okay. Any questions in regards to, I know this is very basic, this is just going through the menu items. I will be deep delving into all of this shortly, but any questions for now? Nope.
No, thank you.
Okay, so on to our next tab here, which is called automation. So on the general Lanteria sites or environments, it will be called HR processes. And this is one of the areas I love most about Lanteria. So this is where we can automate all of our mundane tasks. And this is also very much where you get a lot of your notifications, etc. So this is just an overarching view. I will go into setting them up and using them a bit further. So if we have a look at approval requests, just bear with me. I might actually show you front end prior to back end. So as you can see, this is my profile. I am a manager. So when I log into Lanteria in the morning, as I showed you at the start, I have a list here called tasks requiring my action. As you can see, I haven't been very good at capturing my tasks, but here they are. So we can also filter by performance reviews, my actions, probation reviews, etc. Learning. So let's see, these are all of the learning courses that I now have due or I need to complete. So those are coming up. My actions is very important. So these are any actions I need to perform in order to help my employees. So whether this is onboarding, offboarding, which we'll go into further, but if I have any tasks to complete. What I'm going to look at now is my approvals. So I've received an email notification to say that one of my employees apologies. I thought I'd set up something last night, but it doesn't look like I may have approved it straight away. Apologies about that. So I can come in here and see if I've got any approvals that I need. And all I need to do is, for example, I can come in here, view item. There you can see. View item, one of my employees has submitted a travel request for a client visit. They want to leave on the 31st of the 8th. Return, I have potential new clients, etc. They want to go to Adelaide. And we can create these lists or this criteria in any way. As it was created by me, I'm able to edit it. And I can approve or view any comments or history. So I'll just take us back now and we'll have a look at one of these. So that is what the client will see. So this is the back end. If, for example, a manager is on leave or away and unable to action items, they can be overridden by HR. But if they are, all of the information will be captured. So I'm going to show you some that have been actioned. Do a Now we can see this has been approved. What is it? So we're going to view the item. That was an acting person's request. Let's look at a vacancy approval. So here you can see I've been requested a vacancy approval. I can either go and approve. This has been approved. I will take you through another one. But if we wanted to view the approval comments in history, here we can see it was submitted and approved by 2 of our managers. And I'll show you how to set those up shortly after this. And if we look at our active only, and I'm just going to go to vacancies. You can see now I can approve or reject a job, and this is all I need to do. So I can add comments. Is lower salary range. Because I'm HR, I've got approve for all, but I can either request a change, approve, or reject. And I'm going to request a change, and that will flow back through the system. Taking me back to my employee role. Okay, now I'm just going to quickly guide you through HR processes. So there's various HR processes you can have. So these are all the different requests. So as you said, as you saw earlier, there was a request for leave that needed to go through a process. Your most common ones are offboarding and onboarding. So if we have a look at offboarding, we can see that here we've got some processes to view. Just hold on a sec. Look at onboarding. So this is the process that we'll need to onboard a new employee. And it's not going to show me the whole thing now. We are going to go through this in detail. But here, these are 2 of the main steps. These steps are in buckets. So for example, what I would need to do is fill the form. So this would be going to the candidate to supply their referee details, and they'd need to supply their national police check. Once that's completed, that will release a whole new set of tasks, but we will be doing this after the recruitment module, and I'll take you through onboarding an employee in entirety. Okay, now the next thing I want to go through is settings and configuration. So now we've gone through core HR and what it is, but how do we get to that? How do we get the organizational structure and all the data that we're working with? And this is where we go. So from settings to configuration, and this also, when you're training employees, it's always a great place to take them through the front end. Okay, so we'll start at general. So these are all of the building blocks that make up Lanteria. I did forget to add in the beginning that once again, everything's completely customizable. Clients can use their own color palettes, their own logos, etc. And everything like that is set up through here. So here we can see our company settings. This is just in terms of the Lanteria licenses. Very self-explanatory. You can click through these tabs and see what they're about. They're a bit high-tech. This is the license info. So this will show you how many licenses they have, the expiry date, what version of the system they're on. And these are the settings for notifications and reminders, but you won't be coming in here very often. You will be setting up some email templates and appointment templates from here. So if we have a look at email templates, these are some of the out-of-the-box templates that have been provided by Lanteria. Okay. Now, what I want to go through is core HR. Now, these are building blocks. So when a new client comes on, they get a series of documentation that they will need to fill to provide us with the building blocks to make up their Lanteria system. And these are called data dictionaries. So I will go through them with you. As you can see, most are self-explanatory. So countries, they'll need to provide a list of countries, locations, their org units. Org units is usually a tough one because it does need to be reworked, reshuffled, etc. But we get it right. We get it right. And that's where those views are great for working in. Once again, Vijay, you asked a question in the beginning. So if you wanted to map out or without going into that chart and map out some org units, once again, if you were to just keep them as inactive or orphan them to have a look at before, you could also add all of the information you need through here. Okay, once you go into advanced, there's a few more information that is required: the legal entities, cost centers, org unit types, job categories, job requirements, job responsibilities, job role relationships, positions, change reasons, etc. So this is, as I said, these are all the data dictionaries and the building blocks of what make up the organizational structure in Lanteria. Now, this employee database is more in line with the configuration of the system. So let me take a step back and we'll go and explore the employee card. So if we look at Lisa Vanderpump, here we can see all of the information that we hold on her. So for example, this is her digital employee card. We hold her core information, her extended information, her work contacts, her ICT information, her payroll information, personal information, personal address, her flexible working arrangements, performance and in succession, equality and diversity, probation details, and any termination details if they were applicable. As you can see, this is quite a large card. Now, all of these different sections can be customized. You can have as many fields or as few fields as you want, depending on what the organizational needs are. And you can also lock down these fields. So this is where I wanted to come in here. So we have this great little tool called the Employee Card Designer, which I wanted to show you. So let's pop in here and have a look. Now, as you can see, these are all of the fields that we've just discussed. And from here, we can see we can restrict what can be edited, what can only be edited on a new form, what can only be edited on a display form, and an edit form. Now, only a few people have, and we can also set up permissions. If you wanted to create a new section, you would just add it here. And once again, if you wanted to create a new field. So very, very, very simple to do. You can assign a section order. Now, as you can see here, now we have got security. If I wanted to set up a section, so if we look at ICT, for example, I'm going to click on Edit Section. We can see the roles that have access to this. So only HR has access to this ICT section. However, if we look at payroll, we can see that HR and payroll both have access. Payroll only has access to view the section. They cannot edit. Only HR can edit the section. If we look at personal details, personal information, for example, what are our criteria here? So here we can see that the employee can view, HR can view, and local HR can view, and HR, manager, and employee can edit. So if I pull up Lisa's card here, now I'm in Lisa's profile as an employee, and I want to view my own details. So I'm an employee. I'm going to go to quick actions. Apologies. Going to view my details, my personal information. And can you see here, I don't have visibility over everything that HR had visibility over. I've got my core information, my extended information, my work contacts, personal information, personal addresses, and flexible work arrangements. If I go to edit, this is the only information I am permitted on my personal card. So it's really nice that we can lock that down in so many different areas and so many different views, and we can provide so many different permissions for the employees. Does anyone have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we'll close Lisa here. We'll close the employee card. Okay, so that was the employee card designer. As I said, it's a fantastic tool, really dynamic. We can make and amend as many changes as possible. I am going to go back into Lisa and we'll just review the ribbons. So here we can see the different ribbons. Once again, we have got something called the ribbon editor, and those same permissions, you can lock it down for different roles, different access. You can give HR generally has access to everything that they require. However, you can limit a manager's view and an employee view. But let's look at the HR view. So edit is pretty self-explanatory. change job is one of the most important features. So when you create an employee, two forms will pop up, and the second is creating the current assignment. Now, this current assignment, as we mentioned earlier, employees can have more than one assignment at any given time, but you do need to use the change job function. We do come across clients trying to utilize just adding it into the core information, their job information into the core information. That doesn't work, and it's going to affect your reporting. Now, from here, we've got terminate. Another great one is, so only HR can terminate. However, you will see in a lot of manager profiles, they have got another button called the resignation button, and they can initiate a resignation for an employee, which will then be forwarded to HR to terminate. We generally do delete. We remove the delete button because we never want anything deleted, ever. So this is something, because this is a test environment, it's there, but we do try and err on the side of caution and remove that button so it is not accessible. Depending on your client's needs, some like it coming straight through from Office 365, but they have the opportunity to upload a photograph. They can apply for leave. They can view their documents. So here we can see all of Lisa's documents. On the top here, we can see that she is missing 3 documents. So she's missing an asset handover form and her national police clearance. So, for example, Lisa could come in here and upload a document, and I will go through this with you now. Okay, so what is she missing? So she is missing her national police check. So employee Lisa Vanderpump, and we are going to choose the type of document. And we are going to put an expiry date of that, say it was issued today. We want it, that will expire in 2024. Does she have access to it? Yes, she is allowed access to it. Is her manager allowed access to it? No, I don't want to give her manager access to it. And then we simply upload the documents. Okay, and now we can see that Lisa's documentation has been loaded. We can also generate different documents from here as well. So if you wanted to generate a variation agreement, etc., you can do that from here. So you could generate a change of conditions, a survey, a warning letter, a form. So let's have a look. Should we generate a form, a warning letter? That will give us tools, and that will be generated. And we can then go and edit and send that. Okay, here we've got the job contracts folder. Once again, as I said, if you had different roles set up for payroll, for example, I like to put all of the payroll information into the job contract folder, so they do not need access to anything else. Here we can see the HR processes, so we can have a look and see what processes she has in action. So we need to issue a job contract for her. and someone needs to approve that. And then, apologies, I missed a step there. You can also view all of the information that's been provided in that process and how it's going along. Okay, we can here view employment history. So we'll have a look here. So we can see all of her employment history since she's been with Fuelgenics. And we can see the change history. So we can see anyone who's made any modifications to her account, which is really, really great. Now, another great tool that you can use from here is, say, for example, all of this information that was entered for Lisa was incorrect. Someone data entered the wrong information and we've got to go back and fix it. It's all wrong. We can then go into the employee list, which I will show you once we go back into the list settings, and we can refresh the version and reset everything to the original time if required. But if you just need to make the edits, all of the information's there for you to change. And then we will have a look at her job description. Now, I have touched on this, and we have looked at an accounts payable officer, which she is. But as I said, once all of the information and the building blocks have been put into Lanteria, this is the job description that will be automatically created for her. And this will help you to align with your KPIs, with your required documents, with your required certifications, etc. And that's all visible through here. Now, all of these ribbons can be changed, moved. So that was our general information. Here we've got enhanced details. So as I said, this is where you can add any personal file notes. So this may be something that you want only visible to perhaps managers and HR. She can decide if she wants to add her dependents. If you had a asset management team, you could give them access to this company assets folder. And here we can view whatever company asset she has. Any disciplinary actions and grievances. This is really great and secure way to keep hold of these, and once again can be locked down. We can view her talent profile. So depending on what skills your organization has assigned or looking for, we can also search on that, which is also great. So say, for example, you had a client who was needing someone to translate in Mandarin, for example. You could search the system and find someone with that specific skill to help you out. We can look at her education emergency contacts, and you also have the option to anonymize data. Here we can see her salary details. Her salary history and any benefits. This is where we can handle her check-ins, performance reviews, goals, and KPIs. This is where all of the learning is assigned. So you can either learning material can be assigned from here. You can view development plans, grade books, development needs, competency plans, certificates, and any job compliance. And for example, if Lisa wanted to apply for another position within the organization, she could click here and apply for a vacancy. Okay. Any questions in regards to that?
I think we are good, Christy. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm just going to pop back to settings and configuration over here and show you the ribbon editor and how we lock these down. Apologies. So this is the ribbon designer. So for example, we wanted to look at the employee custom form. And this is how we would add it. So you have the access to add a new tab, change tab or order, etc. This is where you can lock down. So you can either lock down by a full tab or by actions. So for example, if we have a look in here and we edit, we can see this is how we give permission. So for example, as I said to you, we can choose to give this whole area access to HR manager employee. However, we may only want to give the terminate button, as I explained earlier, to HR. So it's a great little tool and really customizable.
Kirsty, can I ask you a question here, please? Like,
Yep.
where, if I want to go a little bit more detail, like say, even though we are saying that employee, if I want to restrict to only certain things, is it like, can we go a bit more detail, or is it like standard certain permission sets or standard and that's it? Can we actually say that, okay, I can have a bit of this, a bit of that? Can we customize the permission sets as well, or?
So sorry, what do you mean by that? For an individual employee or as a whole?
Individual employee.
No, unfortunately, it is based on your roles. There is a workaround, but there's a lot of room for error with that workaround. So
Okay.
let's have a look. I'm not sure if it's available in this section, so let me just have a look. I will come across it. I'm not sure, not 100% sure where I've seen it. But there's no way, it's very hard to manage it. So you may look at that employee further down the line and go, why isn't this working? And it just gets very, very messy to do that way. So it's best to sort of have a all for one type scenario. There are certain restrictions you can do via job role, etc., or by working groups or roles. Could you give me an example of when you would need to do that?
Just I'm asking, let's say if you want to restrict certain employees or the managers to a certain to do certain set of tasks rather than giving them all like say all generic tasks. So I'm just wondering if I just want to give them just job contracts, or within the job contracts I want to expose only certain forms, not the whole module.
Yep. So that's what I was saying. So you can give certain areas to only manager, only employee, only HR, or only your other ES roles that you have set up in the background. So you can restrict it that way, but you can't. It's very difficult to say, manager A is allowed this functionality, but not manager B.
Yeah.
Yep. There's also a local HR functionality that you can reutilize. So say, for example, if you had sort of business unit heads that you wanted to have an elevated access, you could probably design that around them and restrict that way. But for the most part, it's best to just have an all for one scenario.
Not a problem. Thanks, Christy.
Okay.
Kirsty, so you can set up your own level, so you can have employee, team lead, supervisor, manager, etc.
Yes and no. So
Yes, no.
you can. I mean, you can set up. You have the ability to set up roles, which I am going to go into. But as a base, generally the manager role is pretty stock standard. And there's a lot of built-in functionality that comes along with that. As I said, you can rework your local HR role, which we do have some clients doing, where they do have bigger organizations where they do have those department heads that want full visibility of their entire organization, and you can lock it down that way. So there is some wiggle room, but it wouldn't necessarily be team leader, manager, hire. Yep. Okay. But as I said, you could, depending on your needs, and I'm going to go into working groups for you now. You can set up a series of working groups to perform specific tasks, etc., and assign processes and tasks through that way. Okay. Now, employee document types we've gone through. So this is just where you classify your document types. I will show you this briefly. So here you can see our document types, their description, their renewal lead time. We can assign where it's mandatory for, as we were discussing. So this is where you assign. So for example, this is mandatory for all locations in Adelaide, Brisbane, and Canberra. Or you can assign to specific job roles. So once again, an annual parapracticing certificate to any medical professionals, or mandatory for employment type. So for example, if all of your full-time employees needed to have a CPR certification, they could do it in here. So this is a very nice tool, and this builds building blocks for obviously your compliance. And now this is just very basic. This is your employee related data structure. Once again, I will be going into the lists a bit more in detail, but we have discussed a fair bit, so I will go through it with you. So just so you know what you're looking at, if you've ever got information that's not pulling up or you think is broken, and you want to have a look. So this is everything that makes up the employee card or the employee data. And you can just see here what is mandatory, what's not, whether it's a lookup, a date and time field, text, etc. Nice to have, not necessarily need to have, but it's nice to know it's there. Here we just set up some attributes such as statuses, employment types, termination reasons. Once again, going very similar back to the org structure, where it's those data dictionaries. Now, this is this employee full name template. So the Lanteria cognates the full name. And you can choose how to do it. So you could potentially just have first name, last name. However, some companies would like first name, middle name, last name, etc. And this is where you will ensure that the full name is set in the way you like it. Yeah. So that's pretty much that. I have missed out a little bit in org structure, which I wanted to go through to you, which is working groups. I am going to go into working groups and ES roles in a little bit more detail. But for example, when you're assigning tasks, or if you have a group of people that aren't necessarily related via reporting lines or organizational units, etc. So you may have a project team, for example, and you need them to all play a certain role or have access to certain information, you can create a working group. Now, obviously, our most common working groups are payroll, ICT, what's the word? Oh, I've completely gone blank. Procurement, etc. Where we have some of these, but it could just be on a project base. It could be Lanteria rollouts, SMEs, or your SMEs for different areas, and you can add working groups here. And this way you can apply them with actions and link them without them being linked by, as I said, either organizational hierarchy or org unit, etc. And once again, pretty self-explanatory. Enter the title, enter the description of your group. You will have to assign a manager to the working group. And then you can assign your members. However, it does need to be stayed on top of. So, for example, it does need to be built into your processes, or I would advise building into your processes. So, for example, I would sort of have a checklist when I did my onboarding process, if anyone was part of the payroll or ICT team, to add to the working group, because it can get missed. And you always want someone in there. Okay. Okay, so the next thing, what's 8 minutes past 1. Does everyone want a short break?
Yes, Kirsty.
Yes, please.
Definitely.
Sorry.
We've been talking, so you should, yeah.
Okay. How long would you like? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Maybe 11:20. We are back at 11:20.
11:20?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'll see everyone then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Hi, is everyone back?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
back, Christy.
I'm back, Christine.
Okay, should we wait, Christina?
Yep, I'm here.
Dan. BJ, Tony. Okay. Great. So the next thing I wanted to run you past was reporting and analytics. So as you can see here, we've got our report center. Also, once again, this is another area I really, really, really love of Lanteria. Recently, in the last update, Lanteria also released a chart center. So this is where you can go in and build your charts, also using our 7-step wizard. Now, I don't have anything to demo on this because I haven't actually had a chance to play around with it much myself at this stage. But as you can see, it's very similar to the report builder. So
Hi, Christine.
yes,
Just a quick question before we jump into reports. Like, would you be showing us, like, say, like how to create a form and then set up a workflow?
absolutely. Yes, I
Okay,
will.
cool. Cool, no problem. Thanks.
No worries. Okay. So this is our report center. Now at the bottom here, you can see these general reports are all out of the box Lanteria reports. Some of them are very, very useful. The one I really like is the headcount turnover report, the termination statistic report, as well as the organizational changes reports. But as you can see, there's an audit log report if you need it, employee benefits, birthdays, quality and diversity report, length of employment, etc. So I'll just pop into a couple of these to show you. So this organizational changes report, once again, goes back to the current assignment. So this is why employees always need that current assignment in there and listed. Now this is really great. So let's move back to possibly April of this year. And we want to see everyone who has had a promotion in the company. Clearly, we are not promoting people very well. Or a transfer. Or a, let's go back a little bit further. So here we can view all of our new hires. So who they are, what their job positions are, start date, etc. I really like it, and I find my clients really like it for the termination report. I really like the information that it provides on the termination report. However, there is a trick when looking at terminated employees here. So if I want to look at the termination data, because this is set to active employees only, we need to put include terminated employees. And how we can see our change reasons. And any notes on the terminated employees, their length of service, etc. We can also view the employee records from here and edit the data if we need to. Okay. Now you can also build custom reports. Back. But let me just show you. So these are the core HR reports. These are the custom reports within core HR. These are the time and attendance reports. And once again, as you can see, there's a whole different set of reports down here that are available from time and attendance, learning, recruiting, performance, etc. You can also create reports based on what you need to report on. But I am going to show you the 7-step wizard. Now, this is really easy. So you click on new report. Apologies, I am going to take a step back. I did want to show something in learning. Someone asked a question in regards to expiring certificates a little bit earlier, so this would be a great one to share with your managers. And once again, you can filter, so you could send this to each of your individual business units, possibly once a month, etc., for them to view any expiring documentation for their teams. And you can use that filter. So if we were just sending to, say, our finance department, we could look at that, export it, and send it through for them to follow up. Now let's go through to the wizard. So to create a new report, you have got a 7-step wizard. Does anyone have a suggestion of a basic report that they would like to see created?
I think we can play with the report, Christy. I think we can play with the wizard and get going. Probably we'll be more focused on maybe the workflows and other things, if possible, please. What do you guys? Anyone wants to see this, or we are happy to try this?
Okay, I just wanted to add 2 things in here. So one is, as we said, we can designate reports to certain managers so they've got access. So once again, like I said, with the learning certificates, if you wanted managers to have access to that, you would click on manager, etc., to give them access. And also just want to show you the list and fields. Because this is going to play a part later on. So you can, any of the lists in the background, so even if they're lists you've created on data that you require, you can select from any of these lists and create a report from that. Okay, shall we go on to recruiting? So I wanted to show you the recruitment area and run through, and we'll get onto onboarding from there and list setups. This will also cover off approvals. So let's go into vacancies. So generally, any hiring managers will have access to this page. They can come in, they can create a job opening. This is the criteria that they'll need to fill out. It will always need a job role, employment type, locations, and vacancy status. You will need to assign, this is where you fill your job publishing details. So this is the start date that you need published, and a due date. So this is when the vacancy has to be closed. So you usually want to cap that depending on, I know a lot of clients, it's based on their SEEK. So they may only want the 30 days on that. They can choose to publish it to the career portal. The internet job target. Are all of you familiar with what job target is? Anyone? So job target is a sort of third-party provider that's integrated with Lanteria. So if you were wanting, what will happen is your job target account will be set up within Lanteria. You will access everything for job target via Lanteria, but Lanteria connects to LinkedIn, all of the job sites that aren't Seek. So if you wanted to advertise on Indeed in New Zealand, it's a site called Trade Me, etc. You also often find that they have better rates than companies have. So it's always good to go and check on there when they set up, and that's how they'll manage any of the vacancies going to any of these other external sites. So Trade Me, Gumtree, LinkedIn, Indeed, they have got thousands and thousands and thousands of job boards. And if they don't have one that you're looking for, you request it, 90% chance they will probably have them on board in the next few days. Okay, our job ownership. This is requested by. So requested by is generally the hiring managers, but we know all organizations work differently. Sometimes the talent acquisition teams like to take ownership of it. You can assign recruiting managers to handle the job. Therefore, your recruiters do not need full access to HR. They can just view their vacancies via the ES recruitment role, and it needs to be assigned to an organizational unit. Here is also where you will assign any mandatory documents required for the role. So, for example, once again, speaking about medical professionals, they may need their annual practicing certificate, and optional would be possibly a driver's license, etc. And here we can do our interview rating scores. Now we do have some open. So what I'm going to look at is this accounts payable officer part-time. Now that all goes through an approval process. So let's have a look at that approval process. So once the job vacancy is submitted, depending on your client's needs, it will follow approval process, and only once it has approved will it open. Okay, so let's have a look at the back end, because I know VJ is quite keen to get into this. So how do our approvals work? So we come back in here to set everything up. And we are in process, approvals, and workflows. So the two main ones we're going to be looking at are HR processes and approval workflows. So let's click into edit. Now, we want to see all of these. Now, I hope you know to expand on, you may have seen this on all of the pages. It generally goes to 10, but if you want to show all, just click on all, and here you'll be able to see. And I want to see my vacancy approval. Okay, so that has opened, and I want to see what are the workflow details involved. So for a vacancy approval, it needs to be submitted by the hiring manager, and it needs to be approved by the head of P&C. And once that has been approved, we can go ahead. But as you can see here, I can actually add new steps. So if I wanted a secondary approval, so number one, say we've just had it approved by the P&C, the head of P&C. Now I need a manager approval. We want this as the second step, or we can revert it to the first step, and the next one will be moved to the second. Type, do we want approval or do we want feedback? We can choose. Do we want to limit it to a time, to a duration? So are we saying that this will be cancelled if it's not approved within a certain amount of days? That will also send a reminder to the approval. So you may want a 5-day, and then from here, we can say, who do we want to approve this? Now, these are the areas that we can choose. So, and this is going to be what you'll be working with throughout processes and approvals. So it can either be a task done by an employee, where it will do a lookup, go to the individual employee. If it is whoever actions the item, it can be approved by their manager. And you can also choose a second level manager. So this once again goes back to our sort of manager team leader conversation. So you can have both of those managers. If there is a dual manager for an area, we can select that it's approved by both managers. And if they have additional manager, we can also choose that. And you can have as many of these steps as you want, departments, etc. You can also have by job role. So for example, if it was a financial request or a request for CAPEX or something like that, you may say that all of these approvals need to go to the finance manager, and therefore that will go by job role. You can also select to approver manually, but there's a lot of room for error there, so we don't want to. And the last thing I was discussing was working groups. So we won't really see working groups much in approvals, although perhaps it may be request for a new vehicle to go to this word keeps on getting me, or a new laptop to go to the ICT working group, and it will have to be approved by them. So that's how we set up the approval workflow steps. And it's, once again, I really love this section, very self-explanatory, very easy to do, does need to be tested, but yep, very easy. So going in, what you would need to do is you would need to add a new process. This is where you would create the work. Now you would have to select a list. So for example, we've just looked at the vacancies list. So that would all be coming from vacancies in the back end. But depending, you may have created a new list or the bones of the form that you're going to be filling out. And you can select it from here. You can choose, as I said, we've set up workflows. Once you've got your workflow, you can choose which workflow you want to run, because you may have some that follow the same workflow. You can choose what result you want. Do you want a status approval? Yes, no. A content approval or no action? Do you want this to be auto-generated? So request approval manually. So where you would be requesting approvals manually would be, for example, someone would initiate a request for travel or a request for a new laptop, request for etc. But something like a vacancy, which is triggered by the creation of the job opening form, that would be requested automatically. And do you want this to show on the approvals request page? Yes. Okay. Does that make sense?
Kirsty, how do you test it without actually doing it live? Like, is there some sort of a run through?
You can run through. Usually they have key users and SME for the user testing process. What I often do is I test it within my means. So I might use, we always have a few base. So we always have an employee on all of our client sites. We always have a support account, an employee account, and a manager account. So I can often find I can test through that way. But often you're setting these up in the implementation phase. And what you can do then is, as no one is assigned any access, it's quite easy to test, and you can then go in as an HR user and override and see where it's gone. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that is approvals. Now, HR processes, we will go back into and have a look at. I'll come back to that. So let's go back to our job opening details. So now this has gone through the approval process. Oh, apologies. I'm actually going to show you one more thing here. So as you can see, this is where that approval request would go for a vacancy. The approval will be able to come in here, view forms. We can view any, so they can see what they're approving. They have the option to approve or reject from here, and any approval comments or history. And as I said, this is tagged, so if anyone other than the person approving approves, which they shouldn't be unless it's HR overriding, everything will be tagged in the comments and history, and you can also report on this. Okay, so now this vacancy has been approved, it's open. These are the details of the job vacancies. So we can see it was requested by the start date. They don't have any recruiters assigned to it. This is one of my favorite questions. So as you know, Lanteria hosts the career portal or the careers page. We host that career portal. Usually our clients have a stock standard application process that they follow. With generic questions, which are all then imported into the candidate card. The candidate card is the candidate's equivalent of the employee card, which holds all of their information. And that information will then be converted, if they're successful, to the employee card, but we'll go into that. However, there's often questions that you require for specific roles that aren't applicable to that full application form. One of them, I have a client in particular who uses a base job ad, and then they assign the candidates to location. So what they use is a location field here. So they get the candidates to select their preferred location, and then they will assign them to an unpublished vacancy and work that way. However, you can also, these job questions are really great because you can also decline candidates based on answers. So, for example, if you've got a high volume, I don't think at this stage anyone's declining candidates because everyone's so desperate. But are you legally permitted to work in Australia? So if a candidate says no, we'll go through these fields. So these are the fields you'd fill out. Title, what is the question? Is it mandatory? You can put a description. You can choose the type of answer you want. So you could choose for them to either put a single line of text, multiple lines of text, a choice, a date, or a yes or no. However, here we've got choices. We've decided to put them as radio buttons. You could choose from drop-down radio buttons or checkbox. Now, what we want to do is if the candidate answers no, they are not legally permitted to work in Australia, we can auto-reject them. And this doesn't mean that they'll be auto-rejected immediately per se. It will put them into the rejected pool, and we can then choose how we want to deal with that. So you're not vetting through hundreds of candidates that aren't applicable for the position. So you can choose various ways to utilize these job opening questions, but I really like them. You don't, and once again, you don't necessarily need to have a reject or any rules applied to that question. That's just an extra benefit. Now here we can see our interview stages. So for this role, we want to make sure that every candidate is interviewed in a fair manner. So everyone needs to be phone screened. They need to have an interview with a hiring manager, a panel interview, and a panel interview too. As you can see, we've got an interview format that we've listed out here. And we've got instructions for interviews, as well as, if we look in here, apologies, there's also an interview template that you can set up. So they will all have the same set of questions. Now, next is our job publishing. So this can show us where it's been published. So this job is being published to the career portal. If you wanted to view it immediately, you could just click on the URL. To the internet to seek, if you wanted to view the job, click on the URL. And to job target, as I discussed. I might just give you a quick, what's active on here, I might just give you a quick view of job target. So this is the job target dashboard that you can access directly from Lanteria. We can view our unposted jobs. And we can choose to advertise a job. So once we click advertise a job, it's going to take us to the job site marketplace. And as I said, sometimes they do have better rates than customer negotiated rates. So it's always great to use here. Otherwise, you just link to your you will link it back to your LinkedIn account or your Indeed account, etc. And you just advertise from there. Okay. And there's our Seek, but it is a test environment, so there is nothing open. Now, candidates can come in here and apply. And finally, we have our interview schedule over here. Now, this is also something I really, really like. So this is great for panel interviews. And if you have a look here, you can set up manager. I can come in here and go, okay, well, this is what my calendar looks like. I'm available on the 15th of 8th, the 15th of the 8th. I'll show you some of the criteria. I want 30-minute slots with 10 minutes in between. And candidates can come in and self-schedule their interviews from here. So they'll be, once they're requested for an interview, they'll get a link to this page and they can self-schedule. But however, I will show you another scheduling and interview scheduling tool. And this can be linked to either Teams or face-to-face. Okay, so now we've had a look. If we had a candidate we wanted to add here, we could add from our database.
Kirsty, just before you
Yep.
go to that bit, with the interview questions, where do you set that up?
Sorry, the interview stages.
The actual questions for the interviews.
So you would get interview templates. So you can set
Yep,
up
yep.
interview templates. Just hold on a sec. I will take you through to setting up interview templates, and then you can just assign those as you go in. But if it's just the stages, such as this one, you would just set them up as stages.
Yep.
So add new stage. And here you can pull in the interview template that you're looking for. You can also allow them to write notes, give a summary rating, a competency assessment. So you can really restrict this and an interview outcome, and this will all be listed on the candidate's profile once complete. So you can then go and just view by highest assessment rating. Okay, from this action button, you can either close. So what you'll find in most areas, you'll have a few key job openings that you'll use as templates. So once this is set up the way you want it to, you can just carry on copy job opening. However, in the last release of Lanteria, I have noticed there's a new field on the job opening form called Create as Template. Once again, unfortunately, I was on leave last week, so I haven't played around with it. But in the past, we have just been doing copy job opening. And if you need to go back and edit any criteria, you would just edit, and that will take you back to the job opening form. Okay, so now we're here. We want to view our candidates. So this is our candidate management portal. So we can get in here through various ways. You can go directly to candidates and filter recently applied if you have quite a few jobs, and see who you'd like to look at first. Alternatively, you just come through the job. Okay, while I'm in here, I do want to show you another tool, which is going to link back to this. So as you can see here, this applicant is my name and it says internal. So I have been an internal applicant applying for this position. That will stay next to my name. It will keep me on the top, so you'll always know I'm here. I'm there, and you can deal with me. You see me at first glance, and you can prioritize me if you need to. As you can see, Nelson Mandela has a thumbs up next to his name, and that is because he was recommended by an employee. So if your clients have an employee referral program, etc., this is also a great way to track that. Okay, so just to show you, I am going to pop in here. I'm going to go back to the employee role, and I am going to show you how employees would do that. So I could go into, as an employee, I could go into my organization and go, a bit bored in my role. What vacancies do we have within the organization? It will take me to the job openings page. And here, as you can see, I can either recommend my friend, or if I click on the position, I can just click apply. So that's a really nice tool for internal applicants. Okay, so let's have a look at Paul Adams. Once again, you can see all the information we've got on Paul. This is what he's filled in on the candidate portal. We can see his candidate history, if he's applied for any other positions in the past. So he's applied for quite a few. We can also link him to a vacancy. So I've looked at Paula and I think, oh, she's not great for this accounts payable officer. But I think she would be great for our accounts receivable. I could click, link her to vacancy, and select my open accounts receivable officer and send her there. I can view any documents, so this would be resumes, cover letters, etc. I'm not going to run you through an application through the careers portal because it does get quite long. However, when candidates apply from Seek, it does allow them to cross all of their information across. So they're not typing a huge amount of information. It will pull their work history if they've got it in there. It will upload their resumes, etc. So it's also very intuitive as far as applying from Seek. I can see their skills, if they're in progress. I can see any job offers. If there's another position, I can invite them to the candidate portal, and I can create an employee. And if you need to export to a PDF to share, you can export to PDF, but there are much better ways of sharing this data, and I'll go through it with you now. Okay, so I have now looked at Paula. Let me choose someone else. I'll choose myself. And I want to see, what did she answer? I asked those key questions in the beginning, the job opening questions. Now, those haven't pulled through because they're not part of the candidate portal. They haven't pulled through onto my employee card. So I can go into candidate answers over here. And I didn't answer any of those, but okay. So if they did apply through the portal and the questions came up, those would be through there. Now, this is my preferred, or if I wanted to choose a few, I could go to batch actions. So I'd say these two are my top applicants. I want to mark them as shortlisted. So now they'll have a star against their name, they'll be shortlisted, and they will stay at the top. Okay, I want to progress them to interviews. And I want to schedule an interview. Okay, so now often we know sometimes our interviewees aren't related to the org unit, the reporting lines, etc. So what do I do in this case? So I have two interviewees that I want to run through. So I want Bugsy to interview and Verity. I might actually just choose myself. Okay. Now, when do I want the interview? Well, I'm not sure. How do I see that? We can link it because it's linked to Office 365. Here, I can go in and I can view the calendars and I can just book in a time. So I can say, Thursday at 1:30, they're both available. Great. And schedule that way. I can choose a location or I can choose to create a Teams meeting. We can link the rooms and it will book out any rooms available in your organization if you've got them listed, much like you do via email. What type of interview? It is an in-person interview. I want them to fill the hiring manager interview form. I can give any instructions. Now, as you saw, Verity was in no way related. She will now, when she logs into, no, I might just save this one. Sorry, let me do it. Sorry about this. Yeah, I've had the alert. It's come through to my phone. It's come through to my phone, so I can hear that has popped up. It will link to their calendar, and also I can come in here and see that I have an interview. I can open this up. The interview form will be there, even if I'm in no way related, and I'll have access to the employee data that I need. Of course, it's not opening right now, but as you can see, it's quite live. I'll have now access to the employees' documents and the candidate profile, even though I'm in no way other related to that that job. So it's a great way to share information without having to print out and email registrations. Okay, we can then change statuses. So we've moved them to interviews. I would now want to hire the employee. Now this hire button is a little different. So what I want to do is I want to put them as a starter. I'm now going through that pre-employment history. I can add any notes that I want. I will always need to assign a manager. Because we need the manager to perform actions. And I want to assign generate an email. Now you can set up a whole lot of different, this has just got rejected and send offer. However, you can have as many email templates as you like, or as few. You can request more information. You can request to call back for interview. You can advise them that they have been scheduled, or to log onto their profile and to schedule an interview. So it's always best to have as many email templates, and it's very much like Word. We'll go in and have a look at it, but it will fill in all of the correct criteria. Okay, so we want to start a process. Now this process is our starter process or our pre-employment process, and it's going to kick up some actions prior to prior to onboarding. So let's review this process. Now, what will happen, and we did look at this briefly earlier, the candidate will get a notification email, which will go to the candidate will get a notification email to log back onto the portal, where they'll be assigned tasks to fill a form, which contains the referee details, and to supply a national police check. So let's have a look at that from here. So we'll go back. And we're going to, sorry, I've got to get back into the HR role. And we're going to go and look at that HR process. So settings, configurations, core HR, processes and approvals. And we're now going to look at this HR processes. And it can tell us what to expect. Okay. So this begins the onboarding. And as you can see, this is my template. So here I've got description. So it is on an auto start, as we discussed. So this is an auto start for a new starter. So this is when we press that hire button. Okay, it is a profile. And now these are our process template actions, and these are what we can see. Now, the reason they're divvied up into steps is why only once the first step has been completed will the next be initiated. So, for example, we couldn't, recruitment could not conduct reference checks without having the referee details first. So that's how we step it out. So here we see that I got my supply referee details. An email notification was sent out to tell me that I had tasks waiting for me and to log in, and that would link me back in. And I have to supply a national police check. And as you can see here, the responsible person for all of these is the starter. So this is the candidate. Okay, the next will be job role, conduct reference checks. Who is going to be conducting these reference checks? Let's go and have a look. So it has been assigned to a job role, and the recruitment coordinator in this case will be conducting the reference checks. We have given them access. So this is where this form will be created. We have given them access to the read-only fields, which were filled out by the candidate, which was the name, referee, organization, phone, and further email. And then they have a separate set of questions that they will be able to edit, but they cannot edit anything in the above fields.
Is there, sorry, Christy, is there a limit on how many fields we can have there, or? Absolutely
not.
Okay.
But it does get very bulky if you have a lot, but there is no limit. I really enjoy this area, and it's really fun to play around. So I would suggest if you have a demo, environment, you can go and have a look at and start building these. It's really intuitive. It's really great to play around with, and I'd suggest doing so. Once reference checks are complete, the job offer is initiated, and that will be done by HR. Once HR has sent that, it will automatically send it back to the starter so they can sign the employment agreement and their job offer. And finally, contact new employee and start with agree date. That's responsible by HR. And Fuelgenics sends the new starter a welcome to Fuelgenics email. So those are the steps. Now they are very easy to use. So as I said, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buckets. And now to add an action. So what do we want to do? Here we go. We've got our title of our task. What do we want our task to be? Say, manager verification. So whether they want to apply, whether they want to hire this employee after their reference checks have been complete. We have a few different action types. So we put in is this your preferred candidates? So we can have several different action types. So it could be a task, which is what you're seeing. So a task is a notification to say you need to do this thing, and then you will get that mark as complete sign. A notification is an email that will be sent out. A full form is the option to, so this is where you'll be working on your back end and you'll have that list. The full form is where the information is supplied either for you to send out. What I often do is if I have information that that is being supplied and I need to pass it on to the next individual, I'll just also once again utilize the full form. I'll create a form and I'll do a yes, no. Do you approve this information? So a soft approval on that as a full form in the editable fields. You can ask them to or you can ask them to upload a document. That is a new field. Responsible will be prompted to upload them. And that's if there are multiple records required. Okay, so you can have any of these actions as part of your process. And then you can choose your responsible role. Once again, as we discussed in approvals, you've got your employee, your manager, your custom starter, which is the candidate, local HR, you can assign by job role. I often find it's easier to assign recruitment-based tasks to a recruiter or recruitment coordinator job role instead of HR, just to sort of split out that work. Or you can have your working groups. Once again, you could have a recruitment working group or HR. Does anyone have any questions? Does that make sense?
Thanks, Christy.
Okay. As I said,
that's all right. Sorry, Kirsty. I was only going to give you a timestamp because you've got another 15 minutes or so.
oh,
So that's all right. It was only if there was lots of questions to answer or if you want to just continue on through. Any feedback from the audience on that? Do you want to just continue on or do you have a bunch of things to cover?
We want to continue, Verity.
Continue on. Go for it.
Okay. So now once all of these steps have been completed for the starter, we can then create them as an employee. So we're going to go back. At this stage, I'm not going to create all of those just because we've gone through it and it's going to take some time to open all of those steps, but we have gone through the base. Sorry, it's switched me back. Let me get back into my HR role. And because I know who I'm looking for, and I am going to use so there, as you saw, I went into candidates as an easier route. I went into candidates and just selected account payable officer. I'm actually going to utilize Paula Adams here. Going to go back to hire, offer accepted, and I am going to create her as an employee. Fortunately, she's already been created. Going to look at someone else. Apologies. I'm going to look at Edmund. Hire. And create employee. Okay, so now you can see this has taken me over to the create employee card. We can see that some of this information has pulled through. So we want to fill out all of the required information. So he's going to start Thursday. Org units. We'll do finance and accounting, job role. Once again, difference between job role, he is an accounts payable officer, even though he is going for his job position, which is accounts payable officer Adelaide. And his manager will be Lisa. And he will be based in Adelaide. And I'm not going to fill out anything else. Once again, can you see here, there's ICT information. So that would be filled out by ICT. That would be entered by payroll. They would have those ES roles, which we haven't gone into yet, but I will give you more information. Date of birth is applicable. We won't fill out any of their citizen information. Here we've got a flexible work schedule, a performance and succession. So this is all the information I need to fill out, but we're just going to create them. And now we're going to have a secondary form pull up. And this is what I was talking about earlier, the most important, which is your current assignment. So he is going to be assigned from the 31st. He is not a fixed term contract, so there will be no end date. He is a new hire. I'm not going to fill out any of this other information, but as you can see here, because we have already rated salary, we already have salary information gauged for this employee and for this position. It all pulls out here, so we're going to enable that, and we are going to enter his details. So he's going to get here, you can see it's recommended. So we'll give him 120. The new hire, 31st. And we can add any of this other information. And now we have our employee. And this is going to trigger a whole lot of new, now that he has been created, this is now going to trigger a whole new step of processes, which is his induction. And as explained before, this will now follow on. All of the correct people will be notified that he's a new employee. He will be sent an email. He will get the right equipment from ICT. And we can look at that in further detail if we have time next week. Any questions?
Thanks, Kirsty.
Okay, did from what I've just explained, does that give you a better understanding of those processes and approvals and how they work?
I think we need to go back and play a bit more to get a complete understanding, I think, from our point of view.
I do, unfortunately.
This seems a little bit, too high level for us, but still, we'll see how we can get more understanding. But I think by trying out a few scenarios, I think we'll see how we can get there.
What I think, so I want to show you back-end lists as soon as we start on Thursday. So what we'll do is we'll just run through a bit of back-end maintenance. We will create a very small process, and I'll show you how to create it, and then you can work from there.
No problem. Thanks, Kirsty.
Okay.
Anybody has any questions or anything? I think it's open for questions now. So, so we covered the core HR, a little bit of core HR and recruitment. Kirsty, yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Just for Thursday, just actually going through where you create the interview questions and the actual email templates.
Yeah, I think we can make a list, Stuart, and see if we can share that before then.
Yep.
Or what we can, if they have any questions, we can ask. Like you try on your sample database and give it a go, and then maybe if you have any questions or at a specific scenario, maybe we can ask those as a question.
Absolutely can. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to create the agenda around whatever you're up to. If that's all you've got. You went through all of the documents and document libraries, Kirsty. Did you get to dive into that? Yep. I'm just looking at all of your things. The automation, obviously. Did you jump into reports or anything?
We did jump into reports.
Wicked. Just looking at your notes for all of your plans. You've obviously done job openings, the job opening details, and the candidate management, generating job offers.
We do have time to quickly go through this interview form template. If you want to do that now.
Yes, Christian, if you can. Yeah, sure. Whatever you can.
So
nobody has any questions.
As we can see here, we've got we're once again in settings. Now we're looking at the settings for the recruiting module. So I'll run through these quickly with you as I have with the others. Once again, you've got a candidate card designer, candidate sources, candidate document types, etc., like we've explained. Here we've got some candidate statuses, candidate status reasons. Once again, we've gone through. Now, this is where you're going to find your candidate emails. So candidate tracking, advanced, edits. So I want to add a candidate email template. And I want to go more information required. And I'll do the same title. I want to keep it as active. If you don't longer use the template, you don't need to use, you can make it inactive. So you would go dear, and here, much like a mail merge, first name, thank you for your application. Okay, and then you've got your vacancy. So that will pull up the job opening that they've written, and then you can just put in the rest of your email and use the mail merges or these merges to create your template. Click save and it will go back then into your email templates. So it's very, very easy to use. Got that?
Yeah. Can we also attach any other documents along with this? Like say if we are sending out this any emails from the system generated emails, is it also possible
you can't attach documents, no.
Okay. So you only can.
So for example, if you're sending out job offers and employment packs, you would be using your Adobe Sign or DocuSign functionality and sending it through that way and attaching any information
manually open up Outlook and just attach whatever you need, or through the Adobe. Okay.
Yep. Okay, and the next was setting up these interview templates. So we'll go to interviews, advanced, interview form templates. Now this does take some time to set up. So you would start by setting up your templates. Once you've got those in there, you would then set up your interview sections. So you would just create new item and follow the details. Okay. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah. So thanks, Kirsty. Thanks for your time.
Okay. We will see you on Thursday.
All good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep,
Bye.
Thank you.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Are you going to share the recordings?
Yes, I'll do that. Absolutely.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank
No
you.
problem at all. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.